It wasn't the words that broke me. It wasn't even the betrayal itself. It was the way she looked at me like I was nothing. One minute, I was her husband, the man she built a life with, the person she once claimed she couldn't live without. And then, in an instant, I was a stranger, an inconvenience, a problem she had already solved in her mind. She stood by the doorway, her bags packed, her coat draped over her arm. The house was still filled with the scent of the dinner I had cooked, but she didn't care. She barely even looked at me as she said the words that changed everything. "You'll be fine, Owen. This is just the best thing for both of us." Both of us. I stared at her, trying to make sense of what was happening. I knew things had been off lately, but I never expected this. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "You're leaving," she sighed, almost like she was tired of explaining herself. "I need something different, something exciting." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt like I was standing outside my own life, watching it fall apart in slow motion. "Is there someone else?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. That was the moment she hesitated, just for a fraction of a second, and then she did something that still chills me to this day. She smiled. Not a guilty smile, not even a sad one. It was small, subtle, like a person who just finished a long, difficult conversation and could finally move on. And then, without another word, she walked out the door. I stood there, frozen, my mind racing through every moment of our marriage, every time I held her when she cried, every sacrifice I made for her, every single thing I did to make her happy. And yet, she still left. I should have called out to her. I should have asked more questions. I should have fought for answers. But I didn't, because in that moment, I realized something horrifying. I wasn't losing her. I had already lost her, and she had never really looked back. The silence was the first thing I noticed after she walked out that door. I stood in the living room, listening to nothing but my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. The house, once filled with the small, familiar sounds of our life, her humming in the kitchen, the faint rustle of pages as she read in bed, the quiet tapping of her nails on the table as she scrolled through her phone, was now empty. And yet she was everywhere. Her jacket still hung by the door. A half-full cup of coffee sat abandoned on the counter. The scent of her perfume lingered in the air, mocking me. It was like she had evaporated, leaving only a ghost of herself behind. I don't know how long I stood there, maybe minutes, maybe hours. Time felt strange, like it had lost all meaning. Then finally, my body moved before my mind could catch up. I walked to the kitchen, grabbed the cup of coffee, and dumped it in the sink. The sound of the liquid swirling down the drain felt too final. But it wasn't final, was it? I kept replaying the moment in my head, searching for something I had missed. A clue, a warning sign, anything. And that's when I saw it, her phone charger. She never left without it. I picked it up, turning it over in my hands. It was such a small, meaningless thing, but to me it was proof. Proof that she hadn't planned this as well as she thought. Proof that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as sure about leaving as she wanted me to believe. That thought did something dangerous. It gave me hope. I grabbed my car keys and walked out the door before I could stop myself. I had no plan, no idea where I was going. I just drove. Maybe I expected to find her at one of her usual spots. A friend's house? A coffee shop? Maybe some part of me thought I'd catch her looking back, hesitating, regretting. But deep down, I knew exactly where she was. My hands gripped the steering wheel as I pulled into the parking lot of the Rosewood Inn, a quiet, upscale hotel on the edge of town, the kind of place meant for discretion. My stomach twisted as I sat there, staring at the entrance. I didn't want to believe it, but I had to know. I stepped out of the car, my legs heavy like I was walking through water. The hotel lobby was warm and well lit, a stark contrast to the cold storm raging inside me. The receptionist barely looked up as I approached the desk. Cleared my throat. "Hi, I think my wife." My voice cracked, and I forced myself to sound normal. "I think she left something here earlier. A room key, maybe?" The receptionist glanced at me, bored. "Name?" I hesitated. "Alice Whitman." The way she blinked told me everything I needed to know. "I'm sorry, sir. We can't give out guest information." Guest, not visitor. Not someone just passing through. She was staying here. I nodded stiffly and stepped away, my head spinning. I didn't know what I had expected. Maybe that she would be sitting in the lobby, lost in thought. Maybe that I'd catch her in the parking lot, reconsidering. But the truth was staring me in the face. She was upstairs with him. I turned and walked back to my car. But I didn't leave. I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, staring at the hotel's glowing windows. She had told me I'd be fine. She had told me this was for the best. And yet, there she was, moving on as if I never existed. And for the first time since she walked out, I wasn't heartbroken. I was angry. I sat in my car outside the Rosewood Inn for what felt like an eternity, staring up at the windows. One of them, behind those warm, golden lights, was hiding the truth. Hiding her. Hiding them. I could leave. I could drive home. Pretend I never came here. Pretend I didn't know. But that wasn't the kind of man I was. And even if I wanted to, I couldn't unsee the reality of it. My wife, no, not my wife Alice, just Alice now, was inside that hotel with another man, probably wrapped in the sheets I had paid for. My hands tightened on the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I had always imagined cheating as something dramatic, a scandal, a discovery so shocking it made headlines in your own life. But this was something else. It was silent. It was methodical. It was cold. Alice had planned this. She had looked me in the eyes earlier today, knowing full well she was about to betray me in the worst way possible. She had packed a bag, kissed me on the cheek, and left with that infuriatingly content smile on her face. I exhaled slowly, my breath fogging up the windshield. I needed answers. Not revenge, not confrontation, just answers. Before I could stop myself, I stepped out of the car and walked toward the hotel entrance. My legs felt heavy, like they didn't belong to me anymore, but my mind was sharper than ever. I wasn't going to make a scene. I wasn't going to beg. I just needed to see. The lobby was quiet, the air filled with the faint scent of fresh linen and expensive cologne. The receptionist barely glanced up as I walked past her toward the elevators. My heart pounded against my ribs as I reached for the button, but before I could press it, a voice stopped me. "Can I help you, sir?" I turned slowly. The receptionist had finally taken an interest in me, her eyes sharp with suspicion. I must have looked out of place, like a man with no reason to be here. I forced a polite smile. "My wife left her charger," I said, holding up the one she had left at home. "I was just going to drop it off." The receptionist hesitated. "I can take it up for you." Of course she could. That was the right thing, the professional thing. But I needed more than that. "Actually," I said, lowering my voice like I was sharing a secret, "it's kind of a surprise anniversary thing. I just want to leave it at the door with a note." Her expression softened, but she still hesitated. I decided to push my luck. "She'll be in room." I let my voice trail off as I glanced at the reservation book on the counter. I only needed a second. There it was. Room 314. 314, I said quickly, looking back up. She sighed and nodded, probably thinking I was just another husband trying to be sweet. "Just don't disturb the guests," she warned. "I won't." I stepped into the elevator before she could change her mind. The ride up felt like forever. My pulse was pounding in my ears, but I kept my face neutral. If I was wrong, if this was all just a misunderstanding, then I'd leave quietly. But I knew I wasn't wrong. The hallway was empty, thick carpet muffling my footsteps as I walked toward the door. 314. Right there in front of me. I hesitated for the first time. Did I really want to see this? Did I want the truth? Or did I just want to keep lying to myself for a little longer? Before I could answer my own question, a voice drifted from inside. Her voice. His voice. Laughter, soft, intimate, familiar in a way that stabbed straight through my chest. I stepped closer, my hands curling into fists at my sides. My name came up. I froze. Alice sighed. It was easier than I thought. He didn't even argue, just stood there looking pathetic. A beat of silence. Then the man chuckled. "So you're free now?" I could almost hear the smirk in her voice. Completely. Something inside me shattered. I had expected pain, but this was something else. She hadn't just left me. She had mocked me, reduced me to nothing more than a joke between lovers. The person I had trusted more than anyone else had thrown me away like garbage. I took a slow, steady breath, and then I walked away. Not because I was weak, not because I was afraid, but because I had finally seen the truth. She wasn't worth it, and she sure as hell wasn't worth me. I don't remember the elevator ride down. I don't remember walking through the lobby, passing the receptionist, or even stepping out into the cold night air. All I remember is the way my heartbeat had slowed, how the world around me had gone eerily quiet. It was over. Not just my marriage, not just my love for Alice, but the version of myself that still believed in us. The man who had once fought for our life together, that man had died in front of room 314. I opened my car door, sat down, and just sat there. My hands were shaking, but I wasn't crying. I wasn't even angry anymore. What was the point? Anger required energy, and right now I had none left to give. Alice was gone, and I was still here. I should have driven home. I should have gone to bed. Tried to pretend this was just another bad night. But I didn't. Instead, I reached for my phone, and I made a call. "Hey, it's me." A pause, then a groggy voice. "Owen? What the hell, man? It's almost midnight." I hesitated. "I know. I need to talk." There was a shuffling sound, followed by a sigh. "Where are you?" "Rosewood Inn." That woke him up. "No. Tell me you're joking." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. "Stay there. I'm coming." The line went dead. 20 minutes later, a familiar truck pulled into the parking lot. Ryan stepped out, running a hand through his messy hair. He was still in the sweats and hoodie he probably slept in, but his expression was fully awake now, serious, concerned. My best friend since college, the guy who had been there through every high and low of my life, and now the only person I trusted enough to see me like this. He took one look at me and sighed. "Tell me everything." So I did. I told him about the distance, the secrecy, the slow unraveling of my marriage. I told him about following her, about the hotel, about the words I had heard outside room 314. Ryan listened without interrupting, his jaw tightening with every sentence. When I finally finished, he let out a low whistle. "Wow, that's..." He shook his head. "That's brutal, man." I let out a humorless laugh. "Yeah." For a while, we just sat there in silence. Then Ryan exhaled sharply. "So, what now?" That was the question, wasn't it? What now? I had spent the last 10 years building a life with Alice. Every decision, every plan, every dream had revolved around her. And now, in the span of a single night, that life had been erased. I rubbed a hand over my face. "I don't know." Ryan nodded slowly. Then, after a pause, he asked, "You still love her?" The question hit me harder than I expected. I opened my mouth to say yes because that was the logical answer, right? You don't just stop loving someone overnight. But when I searched for that feeling, for the ache of missing her, for the instinct to fight for her, I found nothing. I wasn't heartbroken. I wasn't desperate to win her back. I was just empty. That realization was more terrifying than anything else. "I don't know," I admitted. Ryan studied me for a moment, then leaned back against his truck. "She's going to regret this." I huffed. "Doubt it." "No, seriously." He shook his head. You're a good guy, Owen. You've always been. And people like her, they don't realize what they have until it's gone." I wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was wrong. But a small part of me wondered, what if he was right? The first night alone in the house felt surreal. Everything looked the same, but nothing felt right. Alice's side of the bed was empty, but the imprint of her body was still there. Her shampoo still sat in the shower. Her books were still on the shelf. It was like she had only stepped out for a moment and would be back any second. But she wouldn't be. I tried to sleep, but my mind wouldn't shut off. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that hotel room door. I heard her laughter. I saw the way she had smiled when she left. I finally gave up at 4 a.m. and went downstairs, making coffee out of habit. That's when I noticed it, her necklace. It was sitting on the kitchen counter right next to the coffee maker. A small, delicate chain I had given her on our anniversary years ago. She never took it off. Except now she had. I picked it up, turning it over in my fingers. Had she left it on purpose? Was this some kind of final message, a symbol that she had truly moved on? I had no answers, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure if I even wanted them. The next few weeks were a blur. I went through the motions of daily life, but everything felt off. People at work noticed. My boss pulled me aside more than once, asking if I needed time off. Friends reached out, offering sympathy I didn't know how to respond to. Even my neighbors gave me awkward, pitying looks. But through it all, Alice never called, never texted, never reached out. She was gone, completely, fully gone. And yet, the silence felt louder than anything. Then one evening, just as I was starting to accept the quiet, my phone rang. Her name lit up the screen. My stomach twisted, but I forced myself to stay calm. I let it ring twice before answering. I expected arrogance. I expected coldness. I didn't expect the shaking voice on the other end. "Owen," she whispered. "Please, I need to see you." I didn't answer right away. Hearing Alice's voice after weeks of silence was like reopening an old wound just as it had started to scab over, a wound she had inflicted. I could hear it in her tone. Something was different. Gone was the cold, detached woman who had walked away from me with a smile. This voice was quieter, hesitant, vulnerable, and I hated that it still affected me. I leaned against the kitchen counter, gripping my phone tighter than I needed to. "Why?" Pause, then a shaky breath. I need to see you." Something in her voice sent a chill down my spine. This wasn't just guilt. This was something else. "Are you okay?" I asked against my better judgment. Another pause. "Not over the phone. Please, Owen." I closed my eyes. Everything in me told me to hang up, to ignore her the way she had ignored me. But curiosity, that damn, stubborn part of me that still wanted answers, kept me on the line. "Where?" I heard her exhale like she hadn't expected me to agree. "Our spot. By the lake." The lake, of course. We used to go there all the time when we first got married. Late-night drives, coffee in a thermos, sitting on the dock watching the water ripple under the moonlight. It had been ours, a place filled with good memories before she had ruined everything. I checked the time. Almost midnight. Whatever this was, it couldn't wait. "Fine," I said finally. 15 minutes. And then I hung up before she could say anything else. The drive to the lake felt surreal. The streets were empty, streetlights casting long, distorted shadows over the pavement. My hands tightened on the steering wheel as I thought about what I was about to do. Was this a mistake? Would she try to manipulate me, convince me that what she did wasn't so bad, that I should just move on? Or was this something else? I pulled into the gravel lot near the dock, shutting off the engine. The lake stretched out before me, dark and endless, the reflection of the moon shimmering on the surface. And then I saw her. Alice stood near the edge of the dock, her arms wrapped around herself. She looked different. She wasn't dressed up like she had been that night at the hotel. No perfect hair, no flawless makeup, no carefully chosen outfit. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept in days. When she turned and saw me, her expression crumbled. "Owen." I didn't respond. I just walked closer, keeping my hands in my pockets, keeping my distance. She swallowed, like she was trying to gather the strength to speak. "Thank you for coming." I stayed silent. She took a shaky breath. Her voice cracked. "I messed up." I almost laughed. "Yeah, Alice, you did." She winced, her arms tightening around herself. "I thought I knew what I wanted. I don't even know what I thought." I clenched my jaw. And now, her eyes were red, like she had been crying before I arrived. I was wrong. I looked away, staring at the water. "About what?" She let out a soft, humorless laugh. "Everything." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then finally, I asked the one question that had been sitting in my mind since she called. "Why did you do it?" Alice inhaled sharply, her shoulders trembling. because I was selfish, because I thought there was something more, something I was missing. She looked up at me, her gaze filled with something I couldn't quite place. But there wasn't. There was nothing. The life I left you for, it's not real. It's just a fantasy that fell apart the second I got what I thought I wanted. I stayed silent, waiting. She hesitated. He doesn't love me. He never did. And the second things got difficult, he walked away. A bitter taste filled my mouth. Of course, he did. The man she had thrown everything away for had never intended to stay. I should have felt satisfaction, should have felt justified. But all I felt was exhaustion. Alice took a step forward. Owen, I know I don't deserve anything from you, but I need you to know. Her voice broke. I'm sorry. I let those words settle between us. I had spent weeks imagining this moment, picturing what I would say if she ever came crawling back. I had imagined myself laughing in her face, tearing into her with all the anger I had built up. But standing here now, watching her fall apart, I just felt empty. I shook my head. You don't get to do this. Her eyes widened. No, I said firmly. You don't get to break me, walk away smiling, and then come back when it all falls apart. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Owen, please. I exhaled sharply, looking out at the water. Do you remember the night you left? She nodded slowly, wiping at her face. You looked happy, I continued. Like you were finally free. You didn't hesitate. You didn't look back. Alice let out a choked sob. I turned back to her, my voice calm but firm. So, don't start now. She stared at me, her lips parted, like she had just realized how final this was. Like she had just realized she had truly lost me. I took a step back. Goodbye, Alice. And then, without waiting for her to say anything else, I turned and walked away. This time, I was the one who didn't look back. The morning air was crisp as I stepped outside, feeling the warmth of the rising sun against my skin. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't drowning in thoughts of Alice. I wasn't replaying that night at the hotel or the words she said by the lake. I was just here, breathing, living. And for the first time, that felt like enough. I took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of freshly cut grass, the distant aroma of coffee from a neighbor's house. The world hadn't stopped turning just because my marriage had ended. Life moved on, and so would I. Over the next few weeks, things changed. Not all at once, not in some grand cinematic way, but in small, steady steps. I redecorated the house, stripping away the things that reminded me of her. I packed up the memories, the photos, the gifts, the little notes she used to leave for me, and put them in a box in the garage. I wasn't holding on to them. I just wasn't ready to throw them away yet. And that was okay. I focused on work, on friends, on the simple things I had neglected. Ryan dragged me out of the house more often, forcing me to remember that I still had a life outside of Alice. I found myself laughing again, cracking jokes that actually felt genuine. I wasn't healed, not completely, but I was healing. One Saturday morning, as I sat at a cafe with a book in hand, I noticed someone watching me. She was sitting at a table by the window, a soft smile playing on her lips as she sipped her coffee. Her eyes met mine, warm and curious, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Possibility. It wasn't love at first sight. It wasn't some dramatic, fate-driven moment. But it was something. A reminder that the world was still full of people, that my story wasn't over just because Alice had walked out of it. I hesitated for only a second before I smiled back. Maybe this was nothing, or maybe it was the beginning of something new. Either way, I wasn't afraid to find out. For the first time in a long time, I was looking forward to the future. And that was the best ending I could ask for.